Hello, I am Joseph Asukwo, and I wanted to use this opportunity to kind of show you guys a basic fintech app. Maybe talk about the major functionalities. So the thing is that I built this basic fintech app with the functionalities of register, deposit, and let's just go through it. So what we're looking at is that anybody can use it. There's really no authentication, but in the real sense, you have to get that covered authentication, and login. You have to get that covered. But what I did is that once you just enter your email address here, if you are a new user, we create the wallet for you, and then we give you your wallet. And if you are a returning user, we just get your wallet and give it to you. So now let's go to the part of the code base, right? Let's take a look at the code base. Yeah, so starting from, what do you call it, starting from the readme, we have, it's just a basic fintech app that mimics some of the key features of the real of how a real fintech works, right? It's used to it registers your email address, right? And then you can use your email address. It uses your registered email address to send money, right? The email address you use to register in the app is what you can use as your, let's just say, account number and account identity to send them, to use to send money. So it's just a basic thing, just to give you an idea of how a basic fintech works. So, right, the stack that we use for this is we use Golang for the backend. Obviously, I'm a Golang developer. React frontend. I connected it to React frontend, and then our database was Postgres. Like I said, no authentication was done. Anybody with a valid email address can create a wallet or use the app, right? So let's look at some of the key features that we implemented in this app. We have the create retrieve wallets. This is like the home page. You go, you put your email address, and then it allows you create your wallet or retrieve your existing wallets. We have deposit which allows you to pay in money. Our currency is CUSD, CNGN, CXAF, and just work with me here, right? You can view wallets. When you view your wallet, it comes with your balance. You can swap currencies. You can, if you had one currency in naira, you want to swap it to XUSD, you can always swap that. You can also transfer, and this is using a user's email address. You are allowed to send money to a user in any currency. Let's just say you had like dollars, and then you want to send money to a user in naira, right? You can just, it doesn't matter if you had naira, you had dollar, you had euros. You can send it across. We are going we I implemented a rate to get a live rate for you, so that you can use it to send money at the live rate. So, and then we also have view transactions. So whatever transactions that you have done, deposit, swap, transfers, you get to view it, right? And then we also have the audit feature. Sometimes you might need to know the people that are using your apps, what they are using, what they are using, their countries they are acquiring your app for. This kind of importance when you want to kind of know how to market it, way to channel your resources when you're marketing your app, right? Like I said, the project has two parts. This is the back end, and the front end implementation. It can be found here in this on my GitHub repo. And the major integration that I had to, the major external integration I did was the Forex API key. This was actually used to get the rates, the real life rates, so that anytime you want to make a call, to send money, you use the normal rates. So this was deployed in GCP, Kubernetes cluster, and it is hosted HTTPS, all that stuff. So if you want to pull this code base at your own end, you can. I have installation stuff here for you. I'm not going to go through that in this video. So what I'm going to try and explain is um, my how we walk through. I'm going to walk you through the code base and the structure and everything. So now we're looking at the structure. We go to internal. um I'm a big advocate of clean code, a clean code base. But like I always say, clean code is relative. What works for me in my organization might not be what you're looking at. You might want to do a little bit of a trade off there. So what I did here is like three separated everything. We have the database layer, that's the repository layer. We have the service layer, and also have the, what do you call it, the controller or handler layer, in which the database layer, for example, now let's start from here. Let's start from the controller layer. We can see the controller layer. We have the That's where we have the implementation, control implementations that cause that connects with the client, right? So the client sends the message, it comes through this controller layer. and and if you look at the controller layer, what is controlling it, it only relies on the services, and of course the external API. That's the external API. That's the forex rate that I created, because I need to get that rates before doing all those things. You can choose to put it in the repository, in the service layer, or whatever service layer most likely. But I left it here at the controller layer, because it was easier to manipulate it that way. So, but what you need to take note is that it only this controller layer only depends on the service layer, not the repository layer. So that's what you need to put in mind. Of course, we have the key features in this controller layer, which is the create wallet. You can go through the code base yourself. But something you need to point out is that I implemented these audit logs. This is what gives kind of gives you logged in your database, so you know the way your users are calling from, what things they are using. It's available in all the endpoints I implemented. This is the deposit, in which you can use to send the money after registering. You deposit. Um, in real life, how deposit works is that it works through webhook. You pay in money from what do you call it, from your bank and whatever, and then you can now get it through webhook. That's why I did this to do. This is meant to be pending. So whenever you're trying to deposit, it's meant to be pending, right? Until you get the confirmation from webhook before you go change it, right? So that's how deposit is meant to work. So put that in mind. So we have the swap currency. Yeah. So if you have USD or you have NGN, you can easily swap it and move along with it, right? You can easily swap all those things. And then we have the what do you call it? We also have um the transfer currency, in which are transferring money from 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 different currencies, or from one currencies to another. So that's something you need to look out for. Like if it's the same currency, it's going to transfer rate is set at exchange rate is set at one. Um, which that reminds me, if you come here, this should be set at one too, for the same currency, 1.0, right? So when you are trying to transfer the same thing, you can transfer from USD to another user using the app in NGN and all those things. So we can take note of that. So yeah, this is the another functionality that was implemented. Get user wallets. This is you try and get your wallet, and the key factor here is that you need to get the exchange rates. For when you're getting wallet, you need to get each of the exchange rate, because at the end of the day, you are going to be um, you also display the total USD balance of the wallet, right? So, and then we also have the get user transaction here. This is pretty straightforward. You query your database to get your user transactions, right? So that's it. So now, like I said, this what do you call it? This API or control layer depends on the service layer, which the service layer has we have two service layer. We have the external API, like which is used to call the my API to get my exchange rate at each interval that I'm making the call. Take note, I think I'm using a free subscription for it, so it has a limit of 1,500 calls per month. So, but I don't expect this to go beyond the limit, anyways. So, and then this is where my order. So now you take note in this service layer. This my service layer depends on my repository layer, right? Depends strictly on my repository layer. I even made repository layer private to this service layer so that everything you're doing, the create wallet, which is basically for registration, we did the deposit funds and transfer. You do the transfer funds, like they are all dependent on the repository layer, or what you did on the repository layer. That's implement. So what you're doing here, you're just re-implementing the services and how you want. And one thing to point out is that if you come here to create wallet, what I did here is we try to get the wallet first by your email address. If that doesn't work, that's if that gives an error, that's when we create the wallet. But and then we now save the user ID as that. So same thing here. If you can get the wallet, you save the user ID here, and then you send it to the front end to do whatever it pleases with it. So that's why you can use the same endpoint to both create and retrieve existing wallets. So back to the service implementation. From the service implementation, we are going to the what do you call it? The repository layer, right? The repository layer. That's where we implemented our database stuff, database queries. Like I'm using Gum, and I'm using when we get to the main, I'll show you that the routing. I'm using Gin to route it, but I'm using Gum. It makes it um, easier. You can manipulate lots of queries. So this way you see all the queries, or like for a deposit query, this way I'm using a transaction here. I'm using what do you call it? A transaction, begin transaction here, to make sure that if anyone fails, they revert back. It doesn't commit. If it goes through, it commits. Same thing with the transfer. I'm using a transaction here that can roll back if anyone fails. So that's very important when you are creating a fintech, so that you won't have a user deposit and it's meant to transfer to someone else, and then deposit something, the transfer works, and in the database where the transfer work, but deposit doesn't work, or deposit work, transfer doesn't work. If one fails, they all need to revert back. So that's the importance of the transaction that was implemented there. So like you can see for the users, get users, create users, different create user wallet, different transactions, queries that is going on there. So that's those are the three layers that you can say: the controller layer, which is where the API is; the service layer, which is the service implemented; and then we have the repository layer, and these all are called by. So if you go here, so if if you go here, you see your, what do you call it? This is our it is in our domain. So this is we have there's another concept called the domain, right? This is where this is kind of where you move your data from one place to another. You interconnect your data between repositories, between layers, between the repository layer to the service layer, to the, what do you call it, to the controller layer. So this is where everything connects, right? So now our repository layer has this interface, all our interfaces, the create wallet and whatever. So if you come to this domain, we also have this is for the repository, connecting the repository. You also have the one that is connecting the services, right? Including the external get rate save API service that I did get, or get your country that was implemented. And then we also have the normal service that we are using to implement from that relies on the repository layer. So this is the interface for it. And then anything that comes from the data side, from the client side, comes through the DOT, comes to the DOT, that's domain transfer object, and then anything that goes to the database side goes in through the models. For example, you can see we have a way in this model to also convert it, change it from the DOT coming from the client side to the model side that can be saved in your database. And also um, that's this is from it, although this one is not being called, but other ones are being called. Then this is to it, right? So in case you are pulling something from your database, you want to send it to DOT so you can send it to your client. This is the implementation to do that. So there are, for example, this exchange rate is in DOT, that it only goes to the client, it doesn't come to the database, because we are not saving it in the database. That's why you can't see exchange rates here. So sometimes it's good to separate and then let objects move as need be, right? And then for the way we set up our external packages, like the Postgres that we are using, the config is and then also the some util things that we are using to connect things. I put them under packages, right? For example, this config um, we were using env config, right? It's env config, and we're also even using go.env, right? So that in case anyone fails, we fall back to the other one. So for this my config, you can see that usually when you are trying to connect, it's just basically database connection, right? When you're trying to connect to database, you could use all the DB ports, DB hosts, whatever, or you can just use the database URL itself. That's why all this is set to false if, but it's all set to false. But now, and even your service port is set to false, because in your main you take care of, you have a default port that is going to fall back on there. But what is important is the external, for the rate that I'm trying to call, I have to set it to true, because without that the app shouldn't run, because our app depends on that rate calls, right? So yeah, that's why you have the two true here and the rest is false. The rest is false. And also in my config folder, this way we have our constants, our currencies, which is NGN, USD, EUR, XF, different currencies. You also have the transaction types, deposit, swap, transfer, um, as it's kind of self-explanatory. So this is where we do our database connection. You get your host from your config, your host, your ports, your user, and whatever. You create a URL, what do you call it, you create your DB URL. That's if the database URL is empty. But if it's not empty, you make it a database URL straight up, right? And then you connect it, you open it. This way all the connections are being done, and this way you auto migrate. Like I use GOM because I didn't want to start writing migration files and migration up, migration down. I just auto migrated it using GOM. Quite easy that way. So we have our user table, our wallets, our transaction, and then the audit log, like I said, to keep track of where our users are coming from, right? So that's it. And then for the util file, we have this way. Sometimes when you're working with money, you need to kind of like keep it in two decimal points, two decimal places. Yeah, despite the fact you might have all the 0 point what, you need to try and, because two decimal points. So this is the implementation for that. And then this is where we pass in, get which where the user is calling from, or what is he doing. Is he using the Chrome Chrome to make this call, Firefox, Safari, or we also have room for unknown is unknown. If you can't get it, you can't get it. We also have for mobile, what's the user agent, is he using mobile or is he using desktop. You try to keep, like I said, this is going to be put in the audit log, which helps you when it comes to marketing. You're trying to promote your app, to know the people that you want to reach out to, right? So that's that. For my env, you have the key in env here. Like, this is my personal um, this is my personal Forex API key that I'm using, which is free anyway, so I'm just putting it there. So, but I would appreciate that we don't, you don't, I have 1,500 calls. If you are testing it, if you pull this app and you may try to test it, you could use your own key, or because you never know if other people have used my key and exhausted my rates for the month, right? It's easy to create, easy to go create an account and set up your key. It's quite easy. So now, um, this is my env, so you can use that sample to create your own env, create your own database and whatever, and then you're good to go, and then you run it, you run the app using docker, run the app using makefile docker compose up. This is my docker compose file, right? This is my docker compose file. So I might need to give a sample here, docker compose sample file, so that when you're doing, you just pull it out, and or you know what, let me go to my git ignore and remove this, unignore it, right? All right, so I've unignore it, so when I push it to my GitHub, you're going to have access to this my docker compose file, which is um pretty easy. And so apart from that, let's go to the main, the cmd command. That's where the magic gets started. Hello world. So we are going to the starter. It takes you to the server, and then the server, what it does is it first inits, calls the init config, which is this stuff, to get your config out. So once you get your config out of there, you use your config to init your db, which is what we have here. That's because you need your host port and all those things to init your db. And then once you get your db, you've gotten your config, you've gotten your db. I'm just putting logs here. It's just to see, troubleshooting purposes. You don't have to put it. There are ways to handle this in production. And then your repository, you have to use your database to init your repository. This is it. You put it there. You get your new repository, which also calls all these functions that depends on it, all these methods that depend on it, create user and all those things like that. So after that, also you need your config to also create your Forest API key, because your config holds the key. Your config holds the API URL and then the API key, right? So and then for your wallet, you need both your config and then your repository. Like I said, your wallet service depends on the repository, and then obviously your config too, because you might be moving, you might need some environment variables there. Although I doubt we do need it in this service. I doubt. Yeah, apart from this, I doubt we need it here. I doubt we are using the config here, but it's just in case you are trying to implement a service and then you need an environment variable from the config, you can easily just use that, right? And yeah, once you get that done, you use your Forex API key and then your wallet service with the config to set up your new handler. Like I said before, only it doesn't this doesn't depend on the repository, but it depends on the service, wallet service, and the wallet service itself is what depends on the repository. So you call it, and then just set up, and then you're good to go, running on port 8080. Like I said, in config file, the service port is not important because it still falls back to port 8080, right? Then listen and serve, all those other things that you need to do to get it up. So now, for the deployment is more like, is there. Once you've done it once, you just have the file, the template, copy it, and paste and refactor, right? That's the basic thing about deployment. So I'm not going to go into it much, but if you're hosting on GCP, Google Cloud, that's Google Cloud Platform, GCP. I'm using Kubernetes, so for Kubernetes, I will need to my I'll need my config file, more like config files, and then my secrets. I've encoded my secret, my user. I don't want to expose my user to you or my password to you, and also my usually I shouldn't be exposing my API key to you, but since it's for testing, that's why you can see I exposed it to you in the env. But usually I'm not supposed to exposing that to you. But yeah, that's it. And this is the configs that I can expose, the keys that I can expose to you is in the config. So you set up your GCP. You can go here. You can come here to your, what do you call it? You set up your cluster, and when you set up after you set up your cluster, you check your work. You go into your cluster. This is your basic cluster setup, right? And then when you push it, when you before that, let me show you the what do you call it, the configs that we push. It's under secrets and config map. Is so we have, yeah, so what we are using, we have this config map. You can see we have our host Postgres. So if you come here, you see the same thing, Postgres host. So you just apply it, push it down there, and then we also have our secrets here, question borderless secrets. You won't be able to say that. Like I said, it's encrypted. Same, yes, encrypted. So that's that for that. And then we put the deployment file. These things are, if it's a different thing on its own. I'm not going to start explaining what all this happens, but all I'm going to point out is, you can see for my secrets, you see my secret operation, borderless secrets here. So if you come here, my secrets depends on that operation, borderless secrets here, and then the key is db user for that particular one, because my db user is my secret file. Also my db password is also my secret file, and then my API key, Forex API keys is also there too. So right now, for the db username is in my config, like operation borderless config. So if you see here, it's still the same thing, operation borderless config. So this is being pushed to the same namespace with the deployments. If you check the deployment, the namespace, label namespace, so that it will enable GCP, the Kubernetes, pick it up and then run everything together, right? So yeah, that's all you need to know for this. And obviously we did the HTTPS, the ingress, yeah. So we didn't use a load balancer, because if you use a load balancer, it's going to give you an API that you can call for testing, but you can't actually do HTTPS with it. So we use cluster API, and then this is our ingress file. Like we bought a domain name here for the backend borderless money.xyz, and this is what our front end is calling to make calls, right? So this is for the backend, the run through of the backend. We're switching to the front end. So front end, like I said, that's what the front end is calling to make call. This backend borderless money, you can put this in your env and then call it from here. Right now, like I said, I'm just showing sample here. It's a test fintech app. Doesn't matter right now, but when in production, you take note of that. And then so what is the idea is that we do have what do you call it, the components. The first components we should be looking at is what do you call it, the dashboard, right? Because the dashboard, this is what navigates to every other thing you need, the deposit, the swap. It calls the deposit, the swap, the transfer, wallet, transaction. So what it does, it gets your, once it logs you in, it makes the call to it, it gets your, what do you call it, your user ID, and then pass it on to every other place that needs your user ID. We'll take note of that at the front end part of it. We're going to take note of that. So this is just CSS file. I'm not much of a front end developer, but you can walk around with CSS file. You can get basic CSS design from online and just put something in there. That doesn't really matter anyways. So like this, my deposit components. So let me start from the post create wallet components. So like say we are getting the email from the what do you call it, from the front end. We send the email, we are calling. So if you know, this is our exhaust, which carries our um base URL, right? So from there we are making that call to slash wallet. So let me show you that slash wallet. So if you come to our router where we are routing everything using Gene, right? This is our home. So slash wallet slash create wallet is that endpoint that takes in your email address. That endpoint that actually takes in your email address, which is required. Yeah, if you don't put it, it's going to throw an error. Takes in your email address, makes the email address confirmation. If the confirmation is just a basic one, just to check if there is at Dave's, and then say is we have your email at something.com, so you just check for the ads. Is quite a basic one, nothing serious. And then makes this call to get a user or with that email address, or to create the wallet for the user. So that's that's what is happening here. You make that call, then you are returning. If you check here, it's returning a user ID. So and this is user ID. So what you're doing is, so once you get that, right, you're going to get the data. I'm logging the data and the response anyways for troubleshooting purposes. So that user ID that was gotten is what is used to pass into the dashboard, and the dashboard, like I explained to you, who gets the user ID, which is being sent, which is being given to anybody that needs a user ID, right? Is given to this deposit, because at the end of the day you need user ID for deposit, you need user ID for this, you need user IDs for this. And so if you're checking this code base, right, back to the router, you can see that you need user ID for deposit, user ID for swap, user ID for this, because that's from there we are. For example, get wallet is from the user ID that we get the user by ID. We get the wallet, and do whatever we want to do with it. Is that basic, is that simple. So this is it, and this is where we render we call all our components, including the dashboard itself, the create wallet, the dashboard, whatever. Just this way we call our parts, the parts to our app, which we're gonna see very soon in the front end. Yeah, so basically, like you could see a couple of CSS file here. Like I said, I'm not a front end developer, but as a full stack, you know enough to get the job done. Back end heavy. So I'm relying more on the logic and the functionality. So now, if this is where you call your app, which is this, right? Which is this, right? This calls your app contents, and then your call your app. So now, for the deployment yet, so basically the same thing with yeah, this one we didn't have. There's really no need for a config. You're not pushing any config file, you're not pushing any config secret. So what you're doing is just straight up deployment, no dependence on anything. Deployment, you provision your CPU and memory or whatever. This is the image. If you build the image and you push it to Kubernetes. I didn't show you that on in the backend. So for the deployment here, we build this. We have a Docker file there, so we use it to build and tag this our Docker image, and then we push it to our artifact. So if you come here, if you do registry, this way we have our registry. Yeah, artifact registry. So you see our images, right? In this, so you can see project repo. You can see the one for front end, and then the one for backend, borderless backend, and then the front end. So and is those image that we are pulling up here. So I'm always going to put what I did image pull policy always, because I want, in case I change something and something is stuck, I always want to pull it. So yeah, that's it. There's sometimes you might watch out for that. It's not always going to be always, so you watch out for that. Same here too. So how to I like I said also did the front end domain for it. With the front end had a front end domain, bought a front end domain for it, which is, but you know, if you remember, the one for the backend is backend dash borderless money XYZ. Which one is strictly borderless money XYZ? That's my front end. My front end. So this is where we do the same thing, service cluster, because we want to also do certification. This is the ingress. We get the certificates. What do you call it? This is the back end. So for the front end, same thing. For the front end, we do the service, same thing here, cluster IP. We do the ingress, which points to this. Take note, this ingress points to this, right? The host there. So and yeah, that's basically it. That's the host, and yet this one, the host also, because we're actually using the same, we are using the same TLS certificate, so that's why it's for both of them. But you have to note that this your in your host also points to this your backend borderless money, and then yeah, the secret is this. So these are things that you take note of when you're trying to do your certificate, your certificate, your ingress, your whatever. So your certificate is, yeah, is these things. You just get it, you apply it, and then you certify you push your, what do you call it, you push your cluster image, your, sorry, cluster issue. This is it. It depends on the NGI NX, right? So if you come to my, back to my, what do you call it, back to my image, my cluster, you'll see that all these things have been push cluster. It's okay if you don't get it on your first try. You can always use resources to get it done. This it happens, right? So if you come here, you're seeing my certificate manager, just push everything that was pushed, that is used to certify the what do you call it, certify the um my domain, and what have it, right? So that's that. So now that we are done with the basic explanation of the structure and how it works, so when you are pulling, when you have access to this repo, this is the first point you should contact. You should come down here to the readme file, and then from the readme file you should be able to get how to run it and all the information you need from the Go multi and everything, and then you have the deployment to the front end here, and then you also have your Git repository here to the front end. So now back to testing how it works. So this is, I'm gonna use with, where is it? Yeah, this is it. So let me put my email address at yahoo.com. Retrieve wallet. Yeah, create the wallet. You can see my user ID is being displayed here, which if you go to my front end, you go to my dashboard, that's what I'm saying. Welcome to your wallet, display your user ID. Welcome to your wallet, display your user ID. So now let's first check our wallet, view wallet. No, we have 000, nothing yet. We don't have anything yet. By the way, you can refresh, or you can go back to your this thing. You can go back to your dashboard. You can also log out when you're done. So let's go back to the dashboard. So now what we are going to do is we're going to deposit amounts. Let's say 1,000. Let's say 1,500. 500 USD. We deposit that. You see, you can see is deposit successful. We have the successful. You go back to your dashboard. So now if you view your wallet, you can see we have 1,500 USD, and then you only have USD here. You only have USD. So now let's do this. Go back, and then let's swap some USD. And now what we did is that you can choose a to or a from currency, or to currency, but a from. Okay, let's just send it to euros, or let's send it to naira. I think we might know the rates of naira, right? So you can choose a from amount or a to amount. You can't choose two of them, because if you choose the from amount you want to send, you may want to send $400, right? It's going to, you can't choose this because it's going to go and calculate the $400 and then know the to amount. But let's say you don't know, you want to, you're only conversant with the naira figure, so you want to just send maybe 200,000 naira, right? Just 200,000 naira. So you are sure of that figure, 200,000 naira. So you can just choose that, any which way works, right? So we are going to work on that. So let's say swap. You do swap, right? Transaction has been swapped. It redirects you back. So now if you check, if you view your wallet, you can see 200 naira. Then you can see 1,000. He has changed that back to this, but the total balance is still $1,500, because we have a total balance in dollars. And now if you come here, you can see that it's no more the full USD. These are our pie chart. USD is no more the full this thing. We have we have 200,000 naira. You have 200,000 naira those, and you also have your USD here. So now let's send a couple of these our naira to, let's swap our naira, right? So we go back here, let's swap naira to euro, and then just want to swap let's say 100,000 naira to euro. 100,000 naira, like I said, you can't put your two currency, so you swap it and then you go back to your dashboard. So now you view your wallet. As you can see, your naira is just 100,000 now, your euro is now 58, your USD is still 1,003. So you can, and then this is zero, right? So you can do that. So now let's log out. Before that, let's show you transaction. Let me show you transaction, right? View transactions. This is your transaction, your deposit, your swap, your what do you call it, swap. Yeah, you've already done two swaps, right? Your deposit, your two swaps. So now let's go and do a transfer, right? So now before we do transfer, let's go back here. Take note of your view wallet. Take note of your maximum this thing. This is your maximum, this 1,400, and it's basically like 1,500 dollars that you have. I didn't implement fees, so the reduction here you're seeing is due to the rate. The rate changes. You're changing from one rate to another. It's going to change. So now let's go and send in $100 worth of XAF. So I have another account here at gmail.com. So you enter. So now let's view my wallet. Yeah, so I still have so I'm going to send money from this. I'm going to send money from euros to my XAF in the other accounts in my at Yahoo account, right? So we go back, we do transfer funds. So you're transferring fund, we have money in our hero account, right? And then we're going to send it to XAF. And how much do we want to send? We want to just send 100. No, let's just do the two amount. I don't know how much. I'm not going to do the calculation. I'm going to do this. Let the system do the calculation for me. So I'm going to send 100 euros. 100. I'm going to be able to receive 100 XAF, but I don't know the euros I'm going. So basically, put my email address here. Call asuko@yahoo.com, right? And yeah, if you do this, if you send this transfer, it has been transferred with your transfer ID. So if I view my wallet here, It has been transferred out. It has been transferred out. So now let's go back. Let's log out. Let's go to super at yahoo.com. You can see we have 100 this year. So we have this 100 here. Yeah. So yeah, that's how it works. We send money from this to the other, and basically that's how it works, right? I hope you enjoy going through this with me.